But don't forget that top of the hour will be time for the news update for the time. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast. Right, thanks for staying with us on TVC Breakfast. We'll get into our second big story. 450 billion naira. That's almost $2 trillion. The other way around. That has not been remitted to Nigeria's treasury by some revenue-generating agencies since 2010.
Lara Folayo has details in this report.
The audit carried out by government on the affected agencies was from the 2010 to 2015 fiscal year. The findings reveal the agencies' consistent non-remittance to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. They were also found to have been operating without budgets, no payment receipts, no fixed asset register, and purchasing fixed assets directly from internally generated revenue, among other infractions.
Many agencies had no audited financial statements. We found exaggeration of payroll costs.
That is about $2 trillion.
Overpayment of staff salaries, i.e. salaries being paid in excess of that which is approved by the Wages and Salaries Commission.
Which amounts to $2 trillion.
We found monetization of medical allowances, unapproved monetization of medical allowances, including foreign medical for some board members. Payments were made without invoices. There were no payment receipts in certain cases. Cash advances were given to staff with no retirement. Loans and grants were given to parent ministries and other companies without prior approval. So far, we have identified 450 billion as outstanding and recoverable as operating surpluses from various government agencies. Although those agencies are supposed to generate an operating surplus, of which 80% is supposed to be paid into the Treasury, most of them had never remitted any surplus or generated any surplus.
It was also discovered that 92 agencies created since the enactment of the Fiscal Responsibility Act do not comply with its provisions, and efforts are now being made to rectify that. The organizations have now been asked to pay back monies owed government. They are to map out a repayment plan. The authorities say their efforts are beginning to yield fruits, with the Nigerian Shippers Council already remitting 640 million naira. The financial authorities say some of the audit reports will be submitted to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and concerned officers made to face the full wrath of the law. They say audits of more revenue-generating institutions are ongoing, and the reports will be publicized as they are released. Lara Folayo, TVC News, Abuja.
Right, that's the background to... Right, thanks for staying with us on TVC Breakfast. We are discussing on this segment the inability of some government revenue-generating agencies to remit their funds to the federal government or the federal coffers since 2010. And the amount of money is amounting to about $450 billion. That's a lot of money, Naira. And that's a lot of money. We have Seyi Adeyemo, a publisher and a public affairs analyst with us here in the studio. And we also have Andrew Ajay with us in our Port Harcourt studio. And we have a professor of international economics, Professor Jonathan Aremu, with us in our Abuja studio. Seyi, let me come to you on this. Now, when we talk about non-remittances of this kind, now, TSA has been mentioned. The professor said, well, it's a good development now. We can... But it took 1 year to be able to know, okay, so amount of money did not go back to the government. Do we take this as mischief from such revenue-generating agencies, or maybe incompetence in the part of the ministry for not being able to detect this before now?
First of all, I'd like to say that TSA is a fantastic idea, wonderful initiative. It's been on since 2012. Unfortunately, it took off, wholly last year. Now, let me say this. The other man from Abuja said that, it is important that they arrest them so that it will send a signal. The other thing we need to quickly start to do is the group and crop of people that end up manning these ministries, departments, and agencies are important. We need to ensure that we have people who understand the value of budgeting, look, we have Nigerians who work in other facets of life, banking industry, oil, and we have brilliant Nigerians. And so it's unfortunate that we end up having not our first team in these ministries, departments, and agencies. And those are the ones that holds the economy. They're the actual executives. And if we do not take care of that area, and look, nobody likes to steal. Let's ensure that you have proper remuneration, proper training, proper understanding. Then you have people deliver on their job in these areas. Because what I keep saying to people is, if you have Nigerians delivering in these other areas, how come you have Nigerians not delivering in these other areas? And these other areas are important. They are the ones who execute the things we want them to execute. So we need to make sure we deal with it on time. That's very critical, and it's a point I want us to take seriously.
All right.
Okay. All right. Let's bring Andrew Ajayi in here now. This, of course, the law is clear. The Responsibility Act 2007 is clear. And you remember too, in 2011, President Jonathan, with the Minister of Finance, also sent another circular that, okay, since the agencies were not obeying this particular act, okay, this circular says, okay, remit 25% of your gross operating revenue. That never came to be. What do you think the government can do differently now? Well, of course, the issue of handing them over to the EFCC is germane, but beyond that, what do you think they can do to comply?
I appreciate this question. Let me be very, very categorical by saying that it is because we must have a social system where the economic policies that are put in place are people-oriented and satisfactory, using governmental resources to achieve them. That is why all these policies, of 2007 and even of 2010 or so, by government was put in place. But the fundamental problem that we are not even looking at is the people. The attitude of the Nigerian over a long period of time has become debilitated, such that we now give in to everything that is problematically attitudinal, in the sense that it is the negative attitude and behavior that we now get ourselves involved in, so that the policies of government that was created for societal development, we deliberately circumvent it. And when we have a people that has this type of consciousness in them, no matter whatever policy you put in place, they will want to circumvent the policy. Other countries have financial rules and regulations, whether we call it Fiscal Responsibility Act here. A people who work for government should know that once resources are allocated to their individual departments that they serve in, they are supposed to use these resources very well to the greatest happiness of the greatest number of the people. And where these monies are not fully utilized, whatever is remaining, common sense will tell you that those monies should return to the coffers where the money belongs or the money came from. But in Nigeria here, the people who are in charge of these finances, they will deliberately not use these resources to carry out the common good that will affect the generality of the masses, only to wait at the end of the year where they will partition this money for themselves and their families, so that they can now say that it is where I am working, that is where I am chopping. That is the orientation. But if we can get that corrected, maybe by the time we put stringent rules by the National Assembly, where we will now say that any man or woman who is working to control the finance of the country, whether at the federal, state, and local government, these are the things you must do. Where you refuse to do them and you want to be playing pranks with the finance at the federal level, at the state government level, at the local government level, then the law should catch up with you and deal with you so decisively. So
okay.
For me,
Andrew,
the greater aspect of this
yes,
question
Andrew, let me put you on hold a little.
Social ethics, financial ethics,
Andrew, thank you. Let me put you on hold a little. Let me bring in Professor Adeyemo in here. Now, give us an idea. What is supposed to be under ideal circumstance? How long before government revenue-generating agencies are supposed to remit monies into the federal coffers? Give us an idea so we know when the shortfall is there, we know what it's supposed to be.
Thank you very much. To the best of the information I know, as somebody who worked in the research department of Central Bank, I know that at the end of the year, the operating surplus is usually turned back to the federal government. But what I will recommend to be able to guarantee transparency of these remittances is that it shouldn't wait till the end of the year. As the money are coming in from whatever sources, the percentage that go to the government should go. So that at the end of the, if it will not lead to manipulation, particularly from other agencies that they may likely manipulate. You know, we discovered that quite a lot of the Director General of some of these MDAs, the way they spend money, some of them are even in detention up to now because of huge money. If this money, as they come in, they are being remitted, the percentage belonging to federal government is going to government directly, then there will be less opportunity for them to be able to mismanage this money, particularly when we have to wait till the end of the year. So I believe that as the thing is coming in, they should be remitting the percentage that belongs to federal government, not to wait till the end of the year.
Okay, so if we're talking about transparency, the TSA now perhaps is it's more apt in this particular response to what you have just mentioned. Now, but let's bring Adeyemo in here. The minister said they should send in their mode of repayment. They have to repay. Let me take one of the agencies. WAEC was listed in the Fiscal Responsibility Act. WAEC was not part of those who were meant to remit money. And even the the decree of WAEC 1973 didn't say they should remit any sum of money to the federal government. How is not particularly revenue generating to an extent, if you catch my drift. How would they repay?
Like I said earlier, we're talking about budgets. This is the amount that has come in. This is the amount that must go out. So these things are very, very transparent. You know, we just refuse to keep looking at them. And so whether you're revenue generating or not, a certain amount at coming at a particular time, they know people who bought forms and all of that. The exams was done, was conducted, money was spent.
They do,
so,
they conduct the exams from the money.
Yes, so they can tell whether there is a surplus or not, because you see, it is just subtraction and addition. But the problem we've had is that we don't look at the books. So the TSA will help us see the books. You and I can see it very easily, because everybody now must send it to a particular amount, the consolidated revenue account. So it is clear, it's easier to monitor. And that is, for me, one of the solutions. We need to start to play some of these things up digitally so that it is easy to monitor. It's a function of auditing. Audit means that this thing is expected to run like this. And so the system...
But what if they ran the year at a loss? How will they remit?
Everybody will know that they run at a loss. It's that simple. You're not conjuring a story. Money comes in, it's sin. Money goes out, it's sin. Addition and subtraction.
Okay, so how will they repay now, knowing that the money they get is what they use to conduct the exam? Talking of repayment now. Because between 2009 to 2012, they didn't remit anything at all.
Yeah.
That's a huge sum. So it's the mode of repayment really that's the bone of contention. How would they do that?
The truth of the matter is, some people must be held accountable. Whether the money has disappeared or not, we now know that a certain amount is lost. So who was there at that time? We will go after that person. So if he's bought houses, he should sell the houses. If he has done things with the money, we must collect those money back. It's as simple as that. These things are very traceable. That's simple.
In the case where it's obvious that the money was embezzled. If it was a case that the money wasn't embezzled at all.
That's why I said, look, it is very simple to know. Okay. I mean, I don't believe in witch hunting anybody. I don't believe we should punish people if they have not done anything wrong. But I'm saying that the system is so easy to monitor because it's a function of you certain. Look, before you even come up with the money they're going to spend for a year, that's why they have the National Assembly and all that. They are deliberated and agreed that this certain amount is needed. So they have a picture, a clear picture before they even went into it in the first place. So when the year now starts, it's not like it is when the year started they start thinking about it. From January, you're thinking about next year already because people work in the budget office. And so what they're doing is they're looking at numbers and they're working it out. So before they even go to present, they already have a clear idea of what they're going to spend. So when they now spend out of that, somebody must account for it. You see, because you see, we always feel that there's too much money. That's the problem. No matter what money, there's a need for that money. That's what we need to quickly, and that's why I believe in the people who eventually gets into those offices. If you have people who understand, they don't see any money. You know, because you're in the bank and you're seeing money does not mean you should spend the money in the bank.
It's okay. Let's go. All right, let's go on a break and then we come back on this. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast. All right, thanks for staying with us on TVC Breakfast. On this segment, we have been talking about inability or refusal, depending on how you want to put it, of government revenue-generating agencies to remit monies back to the federal government. And it has been a lot of controversy, I must say. And we have with us in the studio Seyi Adeyemo, a publisher who has been helping us discuss this. We also have a professor of International Economics, Professor Jonathan Aremu with us in our Abuja studio, and we have Andrew Ajayi in Port Harcourt. Now, Professor, let me come to you as we round off now. When it comes to, if we talk about the issue of prosecution or punishment, what really should be, what can act as deterrent to others who have been involved in this process all the while?
Well, I agree that those found wanting in this issue should not go without being punished. But you punish an institution, you punish an individual. And then what I believe is that they should be able to single out those people that committed the offense and then give them opportunity to be able to respond why they did not comply with the regulations that is found in the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So I believe that if they are being given appropriate punishment, this thing will stop. You see, just as somebody said that there's no more hiding place for money coming in and then money going out again. So they should know that the era of hiding something has gone. But again, I make a recommendation that we shouldn't wait till the end of the year before we say, okay, after you prepare your accounting year, that is when you will be able to actually remit what belongs to the government in terms of operating surplus. So we should be able to create a possibility of making sure that the money goes to the percentage that goes to the government, go to the government immediately this money is coming in. All right. So that the possibility of mismanagement will be reduced.
Okay,
so
let's
that's
go
what I can say. But to me, I think those people responsible have to be punished.
Okay, many thanks, Professor. Let's go to Ajayi now. Andrew Ajayi, a part of the monies uncovered or the fraud uncovered, they've said some of them go to donation, and it comes from people like societies, some organization always writing to these government agencies, inviting them as if as they were they are entities who perhaps print money. Now that has to stop.
Yes, thank you very much. I am not saying that government agencies should not be charitable in their, activities. No doubt about the fact that people could write to them, but they will not do that. Okay, they will not respond to all those requests of people, which I think they should respond to, but they should not respond to them from, the actual money that was meant to actually help that sector of government to truly serve.
So where would they get the money from?
Rightly.
Where would they get the money from?
Where
would they get the money from? They don't use the money meant to generate money. Where would they get the money from?
Let me be very honest with you.
Yes.
Yeah, let me be very honest with you. You see, all offices do have their financial expenses for a particular year. There are some that are regarded for logistics and miscellaneous. That miscellaneous, from there you can give to anyone who is asking you. I will not sit here in your studio to advocate that people should not be charitable. But as you are trying to be charitable, you must be reasonable with it. And you don't have to steal to be charitable to people. And there is something I'd like to tell you that I think is very, very germane to this discussion. Because as someone who has been preaching ethics and character reformation since 2003, I want to tell you here that there is something we are not doing rightly as a nation. Okay, and that is actually affecting us very well. If you follow me right from when I started on the people's attitude. The attitude of the Nigerian today, majority of the people is such that when I get to government, I want to steal. I want to misbehave. So government must come to ensure that we have ethics, the science of right and wrong in financial activities, so that at the end of the day, we will have our country to operate like China and some other good country that has stringent laws against any public officials who is not ready to obey the financial rules and regulations. Why should we be challenging people, for God's sake? Why should we be pursuing them to be able to, remit resources that actually belongs to government? You are saying that WAEC could run at a loss. My dear, right from the time I even wrote my own WAEC can never run at a loss. NNPC is there. The Nigerian custom is there. The immigrations are there. The revenue, the people in charge of taxation. A lot of them collect money on behalf of Nigeria. And at the end of the day, there is a lot of financial corruption. So I am using this opportunity to advocate that if Nigeria as a country must satisfy her citizens using the Commonwealth resources, the behavioral pattern of accountants, of auditors, of people who are in government must be such that they are not geared towards the circumvention of our collective happiness, that we are supposed to use the Commonwealth resources that is allocated every month to federal, state, and local government as if it is their private monies.
All right, Andrew Ajayi, thank you very much for joining us this morning from Port Harcourt. Now, Seyi, let me come back to you on this. We know that we were talking about people, government agencies, people at the top of heads of this and heads of that sometimes go on holidays with lots of money and so on. But if we have to bring people to account and say, okay, take responsibility, what kind of action should government agencies take to ensure that some of this monies are captured, everything that's supposed to be transparent is transparent?
First of all, we need to go away from being analog. The world over, everything has been digitalized. If you remove the hands of men, human beings, drastically from issues, you discover that you have limited chances to tinkle and steal, and so that is the way to go. Very, very important. The other one that I started with and I want to end with is the fact that we must be very clear with the quality of people that end up manning these stations, departments, ministries, and agencies. Because if you don't have people who understand the quality of life, as far as they are concerned, whatever comes and looks big must be blown away. But when you understand what it means to develop, to take people further, then you would always walk. You see, this thing is not rocket science. It's very, very straightforward. The world today is very digitalized. You can see things very easily. Audit systems are very, very digitalized, and that is what we need so that people can be whipped. And I say this all the time, nobody is good anywhere. The white man, the black man, nobody. The point is the white man knows that the system will always call him into question, and they are therefore driven by that system and they do things right. So we need to have a system that demands from us as well that we must do things right.
All right, Seyi Adeyemo, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We also thank Andrew Ajayi for joining us from Port Harcourt, and Professor Jonathan Aremu for joining us from Abuja studio. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program. We'll go on a break and then we come back to dwell on our last topic for the day. Stay with us.